On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a quiet man in a dark suit boarded Northwest Orient Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon. He paid cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle, gave his name as Dan Cooper, and sat calmly in seat 18C. Nothing about him stood out. He looked like any other businessman heading home for Thanksgiving. No one on that plane knew they were about to witness the only unsolved skyjacking in American history. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper leaned toward the flight attendant, Florence Schaffner, and handed her a small note. At first, she barely glanced at it. Notes like that weren't uncommon. But when Cooper quietly told her she should read it, everything changed. The note said he had a bomb. In his briefcase, Cooper claimed, were explosives powerful enough to destroy the aircraft. He calmly opened the case, just enough for Florence to see what appeared to be red sticks of dynamite wired to a battery. There was no panic in his voice, no anger, just control. Cooper made his demands with unsettling politeness. He wanted $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting when the plane landed in Seattle. If his demands weren't met, he said the bomb would go off. As the plane continued toward Seattle, Cooper ordered Florence to sit beside him. He drank bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and tipped her. Passengers nearby had no idea they were sitting next to a hijacker with a bomb. To them, he was just another man in a suit. On the ground, the FBI scrambled. Hijackings weren't unheard of in the early 1970s, but Cooper's calm precision was different. Authorities rushed to gather $200,000 in ransom money, marking the bills so they could be tracked later. They located parachutes, including both main chutes and reserve chutes, exactly as Cooper requested. When the plane landed in Seattle, Cooper allowed all passengers to disembark unharmed. No threats, no drama, just quiet efficiency. In exchange, he received the money and parachutes. Now, alone with the small flight crew, Cooper issued his next instructions. The plane was to fly toward Mexico City at a low altitude, slow speed, and with the landing gear deployed. The rear air stair had to remain down during flight, something nearly unheard of at the time. The aircraft took off again, disappearing into the stormy night over the Pacific Northwest. At some point during that flight, somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, Dan Cooper did the impossible. He vanished. Without warning, Cooper lowered the rear air stair, put on a parachute, strapped the ransom money to himself, and jumped into the darkness. Outside, it was cold, windy, and raining. Below him were dense forests, rugged mountains, and rivers swollen from recent storms. The plane landed safely in Reno, but Cooper was gone. Authorities immediately launched one of the largest manhunts in FBI history. Fighter jets had secretly followed the plane, but visibility was poor, and no one saw Cooper jump. Search teams combed forests, rivers, and remote wilderness for weeks. They found nothing. No body, no parachute, no briefcase, no trace of Cooper. For years, investigators believed Cooper couldn't have survived the jump. He had leapt into unfamiliar terrain at night, during bad weather, wearing loafers and a suit. Many assumed he died on impact, his body lost to the wilderness. But then something happened that changed everything. In 1980, nearly 9 years after the hijacking, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River. Buried beneath the surface, he discovered stacks of decaying $20 bills. The serial numbers matched the ransom money. Somehow, part of Cooper's cash had made its way to the riverbank. The discovery reignited the case. If Cooper had died in the wilderness, how did the money reach the river? Why was only a small portion found? And where was the rest of it? The FBI developed dozens of suspects over the years. Men with military parachute training. Criminals who vanished after 1971. Even quiet neighbors whose behavior suddenly seemed suspicious in hindsight. One suspect was Richard Floyd McCoy Jr., a former Green Beret who carried out a similar skyjacking months later. Another was Kenneth Christensen, a Northwest Airlines employee with skydiving experience. Others included pilots, smoke jumpers, and intelligence operatives. But every suspect fell apart under scrutiny. No fingerprints matched, no DNA confirmed an identity, no confession ever held up. And the name D.B. Cooper itself? It was never even the name he gave. A reporter misheard Dan Cooper, and the error became legend. As years passed, Cooper became something else entirely. Not just a criminal, but a folk hero. A man who outsmarted the FBI, robbed an airline without hurting anyone, and vanished into thin air. He inspired books, movies, songs, and endless speculation. Was he a trained skydiver who escaped and lived a quiet life under a new name? Was he an unlucky man who never survived the jump? Or was he something in between, a criminal mastermind whose plan worked, almost? In 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially closed the case. They admitted what many already believed. They had no idea who D.B. Cooper was, and they likely never would. The skyjacker left behind nothing but questions. No confirmed identity, no motive beyond money, no final proof of survival or death. Just a man in a suit, a briefcase bomb, and a jump into the dark. Somewhere out there, the truth about D.B. Cooper still exists. Maybe in an unmarked grave deep in the woods, maybe in a box of old cash hidden away long ago, or maybe only in the memory of a man who pulled off the perfect crime and took his secret with him. Because on one stormy night in 1971, a stranger stepped off a plane and disappeared forever. And more than 50 years later, we are still looking for him.